Hey everybody, it is Andrew Slack, and we are, of course, with Forrest Hansen. I'm very tired. And today we're joined by a very special guest, Mr. Ben McHenry, the event owner and director, co-director, major domo of Swingtacular, the Galactic Open, one of my personal favorite events. Also, legendary dancer. Are you epic? I don't know where you're at yet. Unmute your audio, guys.
It's unmuted.
Oh, it is?
We're chilling.
Yeah,
we're just
we're
waiting
in.
for you to finish the soliloquy.
Oh, I like it. Thank
Yeah,
you very
we're
much.
being
You were
good
just-
listeners.
You were
active
making
listening.
me feel really good, and I didn't feel the need to stop you.
Oh, well, I got more. Don't worry. And you make me feel good, so thank you for being a part of this. Our sponsor this week, of course, is the Mad Reckless. It's coming out on July 26th. There's a show here in Portland, Oregon. Go see it, and you will probably see my bits. Or and like
All the bits?
some of
Or
the
some of the
bits.
bits.
Some of the
Some
bits? Okay, gotcha. All right.
It is a cabaret show. You never know.
You have to go and find out what fits.
Yeah, I'll tell you. There is a point where I am dressed as a very particular fruit. It's awesome. And of course, a big shout out to Swingtacular. Just in general, go to it. It's happening this year, August 2nd through the 5th, at the Hyatt Regency San Francisco Airport. And shenanigans may or may not be involved.
More than likely.
More than likely. And I've posted a link up in the top corner to Dance Geek Productions and all the information you could want out of Swingtacular, except the stuff that you're going to get from Ben himself today. So, as people trickle in, Ben, will you start telling us about Swingtacular? Give us a rundown.
Yeah, sure. Well, Swingtacular in its first iteration, I actually wasn't involved at all. It was Michael O'Connor, along with Dan, along with Alyssa Glanville. So they were involved the first year, and that took place at WNY up in Novato. And then over a couple of years, to my knowledge, I don't know the specifics, but Daniel and Alyssa just had other things pull their focus. And I was in a car with Michael O'Connor, who was the only one still involved. And I was telling him that I'd be interested in running an event at some point. And he said, "You can help me with mine." And 2 months later, if you're not familiar with Michael's history and story, he found out that he had some serious knee issues and wasn't going to be able to continue dancing. And he just handed Swingtacular over to me and said, "If you want to keep the name, great. If you don't, run a new event." And we decided to keep the name and kind of tongue-in-cheek make fun of it at the same time.
Excellent.
By adding the Galactic Open. It was almost the Earth Open, by the way. Yeah.
But you had bigger plans. Galactic plans, if you will.
I do kind of like the Earth
Yeah.
Open. You know, I'm not
The
gonna
Earth
lie.
Open.
The Earth Open.
Hey,
Except we now have Sivla Yelserp.
Yeah, you can't
And
have
that's-
you can't have an alien mascot if you're gonna have an Earth Open.
Yeah, we have non-Earth
Attendees.
individuals.
this is a
Yeah.
non-political show. I'll thank you both to keep it nice and PC. And spoiler alert, since I've talked about making a convention, I'm dibsing the Earth Open, the terrestrial open, as it were. But it will be a closed event. I still don't know what that means. So please keep talking about your convention.
Okay, so
So at that point,
keep going.
it became the Galactic Open.
Yeah.
Because everything was swing everything, and so I was like, I didn't know if I wanted to continue that trend or move in a different direction. And then we just went all in, and it started with 100 people at Two Left Feet. That we actually on Friday and Saturday night still had night passes, so we still had like 250. So when I say we had 100 full weekend attendees, that's just part of the truth.
Yeah.
But then from there, we transitioned and moved to San Jose. That was at the DoubleTree. We increased numbers to 250 full weekend passes. Then we immediately moved to the Sofitel, which was a little bit larger. We thought large enough for a couple of years. We were wrong. We had 550. Then we moved to the Santa Clara Marriott, and we were confident that we would be good for at least 2 years, to where we signed a 2-year contract. We were wrong. and we capped numbers for a minute until we realized a very creative solution. The time that we were most packed was social dancing, so we had air walls during the day that developed multiple workshop rooms.
Oh, yeah.
And then we just took the air walls down, and we had floor already in, and there was more than enough for everybody to dance.
Awesome.
And now we are at the Hyatt Regency San Francisco Airport, which has an 18,000 square foot ballroom. We are looking at having, within our current setup, somewhere between 7,500 and 9,000 square feet of floor.
Nice.
In our ballroom. It should be enough to accommodate.
For reference, that's a lot of
people.
space.
Yeah,
that is a really big room.
In terms of hugeness, it's pretty big.
On a scale of 1 to large, it's large.
Oh.
Yeah. So we should have enough room for everybody. So coming out.
And you recently got some relatively good news about the hotel, right?
Yeah, we actually found out that we were using a quarter of the main ballroom for workshop space. We are still able to use that because that's a great space, but we're able to take one of the smaller spaces that we were a little concerned about fitting some of the workshops in there and just leave that as private lesson space. And then we have an upstairs space that's 7,200 square feet. And that's why we went from capped to not capped, because I can't imagine us getting up into the territory that we would have to cap with the space that we have.
Let's say theoretically you would. What is the cap? I'm just curious.
1,500.
Yeah, I mean 18,000 square feet of space. We would be using 9,000 square feet of floor.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's a lot of floor.
Yeah, I mean if you just divide 9,000 by, oh man.
Everyone gets exactly 9 square feet to operate in.
Excellent.
No, I mean,
no, we would
9
cap out.
times what I'm used to. I really enjoy it.
I mean, like
We would start looking at
things.
things. We'd start looking at things at about 1,300 people.
Yeah, like 13 to
1,500?
1,500.
All right.
So this is one of those things that like you don't necessarily think about if you're just a participant in an event, but as an event director, you have to actually consider, which is that in general, you don't have every single human at the event dance simultaneously. Like it's pretty rare to have all 1,000 people or whatever it is on a floor at a given point in time. And sort of what I was interested, at least in learning about it a little bit more, are some of the things that come up in the process of doing an event that you don't necessarily think about from the outside, because I think it's very easy for all of us to kind of show up the day of and be like, oh, this is great. Like, looks good to me, you know, and that's kind of our only involvement with it.
Yeah.
And of course, you have like a much more profound involvement with the event, and there's so much logistically that goes into it. I'm wondering if there's 1 or 2 things that immediately spring to mind as something that just takes a ton of time that your average event attendee doesn't really consider.
I would say the biggest factor that people generally don't realize is dealing with the hotel.
Yeah.
Dealing with the hotel space, how those contracts look. Moving through, if you're not familiar, you may have heard of Julie Eplett. She's an amazing dancer that lives up in Toronto, Canada, and it just so happens that her day job is actually connecting businesses with hotel meeting space. So I actually had a 30-minute conversation with her this morning. She is a legend. She's a big part of the reason why we got set up with the most recent news from the hotel that has been extremely helpful. We would have made it work for sure. We've gone through worse, but that was a huge weight off of our shoulders. It's going to make running our program a million times easier.
Awesome.
But yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing by far. Also, reading websites.
Reading websites?
Yeah.
Oh, people reading websites?
Yeah, there's
It's not a
there's a website. It is as simple as
It
I'm
took
saying.
me a second to
There's
figure
nothing
out what you were
sneaky
saying.
here.
I love it.
Just so everyone knows,
Yeah.
we have a website. It's dancegeekproductions.com.
We have a link upstairs.
It has
up
answers
there.
to things
Right
on
the
it.
left.
It has so many answers, and answers that apparently you might not even expect it to have. So as much as I'm happy to answer questions and help everybody out, check the website first.
Yeah, reading comprehension is
great.
a powerful tool.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do. So I would say those are like the top two. Reading websites, which is generally, I guess you could say it's simple.
Sure.
Yeah.
Relatively straightforward.
Relatively straightforward. And hotels, which are not straightforward at all. We're now on our fourth hotel for Swingtacular. Obviously, I have familiarity with a couple of other hotels and dealing with other events, whether consulting or just helping along the way. And it is so complex. Every hotel is different. And a lot of times there's not really accurate expectations from attendees in terms of what to expect from a hotel.
Yeah. And I don't have a clean segue for this, but I did just notice that Cameo is in the chat. And speaking of handling things with grace, I guess, I had the benefit last year of, for those of you listening or in the chat, etc., Ben and Cameo did me a huge old solid last year. And I got to see a lot of the behind the scenes of how everything went on and just essentially the constant berating from the hotel and like these things that they asked for not coming through, which is an unfortunately like common thing. And Babak is in the chat as well. He could probably attest to some of this dealing with hotels. But the amount of patience that Cameo has, and at the same time, the amount that she's made of solid gold fire to get shit done is absolutely amazing. And I want to make sure that everybody in the chat floods her inbox with thank yous and good jobs and all that stuff.
I think that's very sweet, but actually, please don't do that.
No,
At least
really.
not right now. Wait until after the event.
Yeah,
oh, right. People don't know that I'm being sarcastic.
It would not matter the circumstances if you told anyone to flood my inbox until like any time until August 8th. I would be my most upset with you I've ever been.
I will give everyone $1 per time.
$1 per email
to Ben. I'm talking texts. Run up his phone bill. Even if he has an unlimited, I want to see how much we can tax it. It'll be great.
I love
Call
everything
him
about
at
this
the
idea.
early morning. I want the entire nation of Croatia in attendance. It'll be incredible.
I wore a T-shirt for you guys.
And I wore
Look at that.
pants.
Look at this.
As far as you know.
Look at what I did for you.
Yeah, can we this is incredible. I can't believe that thing is real. I thought it was just a joke that Katrina put together.
That is a real thing. Yeah.
So Katrina, I don't think you're here tonight, but thank you. And I'll
thanks,
email you. I
PDX
swear.
West Coast Swing. It was awesome. I think I talked to her the day after we decided on this date, and it was just lined up perfectly that she was like, take a look and see what shirts stick out. And this had to happen. I also got one other one, but I'm not going to share that with you because I'd have to walk over there.
Oh. So most of today is going to be actually taking questions for Ben. There's so much that goes into having an event, and let's cover this one right off the bat before anybody starts thinking that like event running is an easy way to make a bunch of cash, because all you see is what is right in front of you. You see Ben and Cameo, or you see, pick your favorite event director, and they're standing in front of everybody and everybody's screaming their name, and they're like, oh, and he's wearing a nice suit. Oh, they must be doing all right with this thing. They hustle hard and work extremely hard throughout the year. I mean, you have to do stuff like get an Emmy. Didn't that happen? Somebody got an Emmy?
Yeah,
Cameo got an Emmy.
Happen.
I don't even.
Cameo won an Emmy.
For something. What? She never said what.
It was a project that she was involved in that a couple of our friends organized. Shout out to Ben Needhamwood and Wes Kruko. They threw something together after a conversation with Wes's dad, Mike Kruko, who is the current Giants announcer, former Giants player.
What?
Yeah.
Why am I surprised by the stuff that you do anymore? I was hanging out with Barack the other day. That's Obama. I don't know if you know it, but sorry.
They put together a project for funsies, and then it for funsies won an Emmy the first time, and then they more seriously put together a project. It was Bass Belly 2, enter the game. It's either enter the game or into the game. One or the other.
Well, this is embarrassing.
Cameo's going to let us know soon.
She's right there.
But either way, and that entered into 4 categories at the regional Emmys, and it won all 4.
Sure.
So boom.
Sure. I mean, when I throw stuff together, I win at least a Grammy. So mostly daytime talk show awards, though. It's just we are the longest running.
Yeah, it's true.
American-based West Coast Swing show.
Yeah, it's true. We should apply to the Guinness Book of World Records. That's the angle that we should take.
No one can touch it.
No, we could do this.
Yeah,
we have no competition.
It's impossible if anyone started right now to beat us for the longest running blah.
If we just put one moderately useful show on every week for the foreseeable future, we will win.
Yeah.
Speaking of useful shows, does anybody have any questions?
There it is.
Yeah. Hey, all right.
No,
solid transition.
To kind of transition into that, one of the biggest things that I've found out moving through this is that there's just not a whole lot of communication. Yeah. And there's a lot of misconceptions, and I'm really happy to be as transparent as humanly possible and kind of pull the curtain back and let you guys know about whatever you're curious about.
Yeah, for sure. Well, is there, to kind of seed it, is there something that you feel is a particular source of misconception or confusion or something from your attendees? Is there something that you hear a lot that like you wish you could just tell 1,000 people right now to just chill out about or whatever it is?
I mean, one that's bothersome.
Yeah, outside of reading the website.
Yeah,
you got to read the website.
We already went there. We don't have to go back. I think one of the biggest ones to understand is the money that goes into it, and knowing how many years you have to invest and how much money and effort and hours and blood and sweat and tears, all very much so meant in the literal sense, to get to any point that you might actually make any kind of profit. And at that point, if you consider the number of hours that you put into it,
yeah, you're fortunate to be making the minimum wage.
It's a labor of love.
Yeah.
You might get to the point that you at least are getting a return on the investment that you put in, and that's fabulous. Even Swingtacular, we haven't quite gotten there yet. Hoping this year we're getting to be a little bit closer. But that gives you a general idea of the amount of effort and the number of years you have to put into it before you even have a chance to get any kind of return on your investment. Most people running events, if they are trying to make money, are having a really bad time.
Yeah.
Sure.
If they go into it with the intent to create an experience for people and they're okay not getting the financial return on the investment and the effort, and they're happy getting the return from their attendees and their experience, then they're in good shape.
Yeah. I mean, it's in general, you don't really enter into the arts to make cash, and you shouldn't. And it's the old adage. I want to quote something that Andrew Sinclair told me a long time ago. He second year I did Come Rain Come Shine. He basically saved it and did a bunch of shit that we never even thought about doing, which is fantastic. It was treat running an event like you're opening a restaurant. Expect at the very least 2 years until you even break even, and then always expect to go out of business. I was like, cool. Mm-hmm. That takes all the fear away, actually. Awesome.
As an aside, I'd just like to say that Slack was actually one of my biggest inspirations to get into event directing. I always feel like an event should embody the person running it, and Come Rain, Come Shine did that a beautifully executed way. I can hear myself like 2 seconds later. So if I get distracted and I'm a little bit off, cut me some slack. That's all I'm saying.
Technical difficulties, guys.
But yeah, so that event embodied Slack, and he's a beautiful human. So it was a beautiful event. I loved Come Rain, Come Shine.
I love Andrew's comment here. Man, I'm a hole. Oh, man.
Forrest won't swear on this show, but I sure will. He said asshole because we're adults.
He said asshole, everyone. He said thing in the place. So it's kind of following up on the financial question. Jody is asking a question about how much capital would you recommend having banked. Of course, this is going to vary event to event in to massive degree.
Yeah, but I would actually
say...
Do you have
any context on that?
Yeah. I actually there's, I feel like, two ways that you can start an event. One, you have a lot of capital, a lot of money. You're into this to, again, create the experience. And you have enough money on the side that you're not scared of losing a lot of money, right? Whether that's an investor, whether that's your own funds, cool. I would say that's a faster track to build your event quickly. There's a few events, I'm blanking on any off the top of my head, but there's a few events that I've seen use that model and get to a point that they're breaking even faster.
Yeah.
Because they are able to bring in bigger name pros, bigger hotel, fit more people, better music, just bigger experience and production wise. And that means they're able to eclipse that spot a little bit faster. Swingtacular, that was not the case with me. I started at a local studio, 2 Left Feet, and that was a great year and it was fabulous. But we kept our budget way down.
Yeah.
So that was.
Do you happen to know what the budget was? If you're
yeah, it was $10,600, give or take $50. I would say generally that bigger event coming in is looking at closer to a $40,000 to $50,000 budget. Our budget for this year is right around $75,000.
Dang.
With little knickknacks here and there, it'll probably bump up closer to $80,000.
And so to be clear, that's money going out the door.
Yeah.
So you can do some quick math on like event tickets, and then you look at, a lot of all-star tickets, for instance, for Spectacular, you are not really making any money on those.
Or our pass winners.
Or pass winners, people who want to pass at a different event.
Or juniors.
Yeah. Junior dancers, not doing anything for those. So you start to kind of run the math on how do you get to that $70,000 budget number, and you start to kind of understand why a lot of events don't really make any money.
Yeah.
So, and why even with, I think it's probably fair to say at this point, running one of the more successful events on the circuit, there's still a lot of questions from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we're still finding out about. Over the last few days, it's been really good news. That's great. For a couple months before that, it was not a whole lot of good news. It was kind of scary. Yeah, I'll leave it there for now.
Yeah.
Unless somebody asks very directly.
Very specific, like, yeah. I want to
So just kind of summarizing, it depends on the kind of event you want to start out with. If you want to try to eclipse and your break-even point a little bit faster and you have the capital, that's a great way to do it. If you were like me, we started really small to make sure small budget, small loss, and it stayed that way and just slowly increased, and we lost a little bit each year. And our goal was to build to a point that we're almost at.
Awesome. And I want to point something out too, because you say that you didn't have that great of like a monetary capital essentially, but you do have like the capital of your fame and all the hard work and all the years you've put into the community and that sort of thing. So whether or not it's money or it's, you've done the legwork, you've schmoozed or anything like that, you can't really just go into something and expect it to be successful. So you may not have had the money, but boy, did you have the capital.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there was also a few people that generally have preferred to stay nameless and off in the shadows that did help me out financially.
Yeah.
They saw my vision, they saw my ideas, and they were comfortable to throw some capital behind that.
Yeah, and that's huge. I mean, Babak mentions it above, sponsorships and intensives and that sort of thing. They're huge. And that's always been kind of the weird thing that I feel disconnected from when I go to the average convention. I don't see a lot of sponsorships left and right at these things. It's like, welcome to, I don't know anything about this. I'm going to use an example. Easter Swing, where everything is Easter Swing. Buy Easter Swing stuff. And Easter Swing is brought to you by Easter Swing or whatever. Somebody's going to at me on that and be like, well, Easter actually does it. Calm down, Alpha. It's not a big deal. Speaking of which, Alpha Pro is coming. But it is usually very, let's call it selfish and self-centered and that sort of thing. So if you are thinking of doing a convention, get a friend, a backer, a sponsor. Really work hard to get that money that is not yours, and then have fun when art and corporate meet. It's a whole other thing. Let's see.
That's a major process right now for a lot of events. There's a lot of events that are discussing it.
Yeah.
The truth is, we have to develop the market.
Yeah.
First.
That's the thing.
Right now, most of our sponsors are extremely friendly and generous dancers.
Yeah.
That are just willing to help out events.
Who may or may not be getting a return on their investment, to be perfectly frank.
Yeah. So our goal is to get to the point where we have a market and develop enough advertising space within the event without looking like a NASCAR event.
Yeah.
I would kind of be okay with it. I'm not lying.
That would be really funny. All right. So, idea for next year. I want everyone who's dancing in the peer vote to like have to wear something on their chest that brands them. I want Benji to wear like a Doritos logo. I want Victoria out there with the Pepsi sponsorship.
Nice.
I want the whole thing. I want it wall to wall.
I call dibs
I can get
on the Blizzard
if I can get
sponsorship.
Doritos and Pepsi to sponsor.
If anyone in the
call out
chat
to you guys right
No,
now,
this is the greatest.
run
This is the greatest
Doritos.
idea ever.
because we know that Pepsi and Doritos are watching this right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know those
Talk
like
to me.
that
Pepsi, have your people
900
call me
people
Pepsi.
we haven't reached yet.
Have your people
those
call my
900 people.
But that is the truth. That we want to get to the point that we actually have a market.
Sure.
So if we have over 1,000 people, it does make sense for more events to do sponsorships. And we've done a lot of sponsorships that have been really beneficial for us. Just recently, we've obviously teamed up with, well, maybe not obviously to a lot of you guys. I guess that's why I'm here. We're doing the Summer Swing Triple Crown with Jack and Jillarama, Wild Wild Westy that just happened, and Swingtacular to finish it off. It's a social dancer award that spans over the 3 events.
Cool.
We also did a mug sponsorship, which to get a mug, 250 people stayed up until 8 a.m. dancing to get a mug.
Whoa.
It's a cool mug.
Really wanted that mug. It's a great mug.
It's a really cool mug.
Beautiful.
Right.
Very
so
ergonomic.
there are opportunities within our community to kind of cross promote a little bit more, and that's been one of the biggest things for us, is really using other events and our relationships with them to really help everyone benefit. And right now, Jack and Jillarama and Wild Wild Westy are 2 of the fastest growing events on the circuit.
Yeah, that's fair to say. To kind of loop back, there was an interesting question from a couple different people, but one that I think we could touch on real quick was actually asked by Austin, because this is a question that I think a lot of people have. He asked, what percentage of competition fees do you take toward the cost of the event? Because I know that initially the answer was 0%, where you gave all of the money that went into the contest back into contest. It was effectively like a jackpot style system for all of your contests. And then that just hit a point where it became untenable.
Ish.
Okay. Yeah.
Ish.
I mean, you can still give a lot of it back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It got to the point that we had so many competition entries, and this was literally last year was the only year and first year and potentially the only year ever. We're still in talks about that we didn't take all of the competition fees in, take out our WSTC fees, take out our trophy costs, which in the past were Milky Ways and Galaxy bars and Mars bars.
Very inexpensive.
This year, obviously, we're calling them the Civlays.
Nice.
And they're the blown glass alien ray guns.
What?
They look dope.
They're really cool. Yeah, we have
One
almost
will be
20
stolen. I'm
blown
telling
glass
you right
alien
now.
ray guns sitting on a piano
Andrew shot
at our
first.
house right now.
I did.
So we just pulled those out and then divided among all of the competitions. Last year was the first year that I think we kept like maybe 10% tops.
Yeah.
And that's because we were looking at the situation. The amount of money that we were paying out was significantly above average, even for an event our size. And so that was one thing that I will be honest, I don't want to question what other event directors do. The first year that I ran the event and I looked at the amount of competition fees that came in, I evenly distributed out and my jaw dropped to the floor. We've always paid out, I think usually minimum $250 for first place for any of our divisions.
Nice.
Especially any of our straight Jack and Jills. I think the 3-for-all we paid out a little bit less. Just it depends on the division for sure, but pretty much everything that comes in we pay back out. There are totally reasonable responses on the other side to say, well, you also have to pay your judges, you also have to pay your DJs for that time, you have to pay for the floor space to even be able to run the competitions. So I get the other side. We would prefer to organize as much sponsorship as humanly possible long term, so we can actually decrease ticket cost. That's actually an eventual goal for ours. But we feel that everything that comes in from ticket sales, that's how we're recouping our money.
Yep.
It's not from the competition fees, but we're rare.
And Austin has sort of a follow-up, and so I think Andrew answered this. Is it $1 per entry?
It is
WSDC?
$1 per entry.
Okay, so that has to vanish into the ether. But I just sort of to say this, I'm not just trying to like pimp out Swingtacular per se here, but I do think that it's a way that Swingtac is very, very different from most events. The point that kind of Austin is naming with this question, I think, is like a very, very fair and valid one. Most events do not pay particularly well relative to the amount of money that they take in for contest fees. That's just a fact. Then you can start to debate whether or not that's a reasonable thing based off of all of the other costs associated with the event. You know, like exactly everything that Ben was saying, the cost of judging, the cost of, and yes, Bobby and
I enjoyed
Andrew
that 3 different event directors
have all
I
chimed in.
apologize. I didn't mean to forget. There is an annual fee as well for the WSTC, so that's factored as well. In fact, actually, I think the last 3 years, I forgot to remove that from the competition fees before we paid them out. So you're welcome, Swingtacularites. I don't know. That's all I got.
Okay, so
I want to know. I don't need you to answer this, Ben, but those that answered, I'd love to hear your thoughts, maybe in private, about that annual fee, and the fee for each and every contest entry. We can talk about that later because I have a lot to say. Let's move on.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say that I know the last couple of WSTC meetings.
Yeah.
It's always a challenge for me to make it. I know that I'm rare. There's like me, Cameo, Ben Morris.
Yeah.
Obviously, like Kyle and Sarah, that it's Saturday morning at the U.S. Open. Mm-hmm. So I haven't been able to attend because I have other things to focus on.
Yeah.
However, hearing people's response after, the WSTC does seem to actively be talking to people about what they can do with the money that's coming in to support events, attendees, all that kind of stuff. I'm not entirely sure how and where and if that's coming to fruition yet, but I will say that that is a conversation that's happening.
As of now, is the fee going anywhere?
As of right now, a couple of things that I know off the top of my head, maintaining the website, the promo marketing through their website, and then I'm sure there's a couple of other things that I'm not factoring, but I'm not sure.
Okay. That would be a great topic for a whole other show. Let's keep talking about.
I feel like everything relating to the WSTC is probably like a whole other episode, including just like the point system in general. And
that's absolutely.
Yeah. It all kind of folds into one big conversation that I feel is probably a separate conversation, unless we just want to do it.
I think that's branching out far enough.
Too far from the tree.
We can cut it. We can bonsai it.
Okay, great. And we'll grow a little different tree.
And we'll grow a different tree.
Beautiful. So apparently, Andrew Sinclair is now commenting that apparently they did lower the annual fee recently. So congratulations, WSDC, for charging events less money
Thank
for
you.
your services.
Thanks.
Alan had a question way back when where he was asking about marketing and branding, which I think is a great question because I think that Swingtacular is one of relatively few events that has a very distinctive branding.
Yeah.
And like has a very clear kind of artistic identity. So the specific question was like, what was one of the best marketing and branding decisions that you made? To answer for you,
Go ahead, buddy.
I feel like it's just the whole like branding it as the Galactic Open and then running with it is kind of the most central thing you've done. And I guess so what I would really like is like your like a comment from you, I suppose, on just events in general, things events could do differently with their branding, trying not to just be the same thing or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing by far, and we've actually questioned how much and how far we want to dive into our specific branding.
Sure.
Because we have an alien running around and a lot of people would see that.
It's a little lighthearted.
Well, a lot of people would see that and sometimes not actually take us very seriously. Mm-hmm. And people are slowly figuring out that that's just, it's a playful branding gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
But meanwhile,
I would submit that is what the West Coast scene needs, you know? Disneyland, Disney, just your favorite things in the world are typically mascots, man. And eccentricity in general sells things. Having everything everything else, like, oh, thank God that they didn't have the Green Man at this unknowable, unnamed, forgettable West Coast thing. I got to have the same dances to the same music to the same color scheme with the same backdrop one more time. Yes!
Yeah, so there's two quick things.
Yeah.
Right, finishing that up. I think the thing that has been more important is our core values, which is focusing on a positive learning experience, leveled concept-based workshops, no patterns allowed. That's been huge forever.
It's pretty darn cool.
The live music is a piece of it. If you love the live music, we have great live music. If you don't live music, it takes up 45 minutes each night.
Yeah.
That's it, 45 minutes, right? But obviously that's something we do focus on. And then really focusing on social dancing and trying to create an opportunity for people to create art within the Galactic show. So people covering our dancers' music and their routines. So you actually have dance performers with a live band at the same time. We're trying to grow that side of things and create showpieces that are generated just to be a showpiece.
Yeah.
Not meant for any form of competition and not limited as such. That's one of the things that I'm most excited about moving forward. So there's all of that. And that rolls into the second thing. I've had a few people come up to me and say that they're interested in running an event. My first question is always, what are you going to do different?
Yeah.
And if they come back and say, well, we're going to have workshops. Okay, I'm going to need more.
Yeah.
We're going to have Jack and Jill's. Still going to need more, right? And I feel like it needs to get to a point that you have at least a couple of unique components that you're offering to our community. Because let's be honest, the event market is already way oversaturated.
Yeah,
they're way oversaturated. For sure. And that's okay. I have no problem with a competitive marketplace. No problem at all. But if you're going to bring another event into the mix, it had better be something different. It had better be unique. And Swingtacular, we've always prided ourselves on trying to change and evolve with what people want. We take our surveys very seriously every year. And that's massively played a huge role. And then the Galactic thing, that just evolved naturally. It started again, it was almost the Earth Open. And then I suppose it would be like more of like a natural elements, like hippie type theme. I don't know. But we went with Galactic. And so now we have 2 alien mascots.
Because why not?
Because why not?
Yeah.
Because people responded well to it and we just kept rolling with it. But it's just a fun branding gimmick. Mm-hmm. We care a lot more about the nuts and bolts behind the scenes that keeps our retention rate as high as it is, which is right around 70 to 75%.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Dem's big numbers.
Okay.
Didn't we say no event plugs unless it's like
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
on,
it's
like, the
true.
entire
I mean,
show?
we did say no event plugs, but you're kind of here to talk about
It's
the
your
thing, and talk
event.
about events. So I think that we've already gone up the creek with regards to
Okay.
that one.
all right, sounds good.
Yeah, do you see the graphic? Like, Swingtacular is a big old banner on this entire thing. It's a constant plug. I can unplug you if you like.
Oh no, that's fine. I'm
Okay.
cool with it.
All right, great. Yeah, in general, people in the comments or whatever, unless we facilitate, or you happen to be unaffiliated and you're just like, yeah, man, I went to blah blah last year and it was a blast in context of what we're talking about. Cool.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's totally fine.
That's totally fine. What did Bobak say? I really like your ability to do something totally crazy is the reason why we took similar chances at Rose City Swing. Yeah, there's very few that get to go as eccentric or that take the chance of going eccentric, and it's always ending up to be like an almost at most conventions. You know what I mean? Like if you had done it's Sylvie Yulserp and what's the other one called?
Sivleg, Yelserp,
Damn it.
It's hard to pronounce and human.
and Istap and Yolk.
Stab Milk?
Yes.
Istap
You know,
and Milk.
Stab Milk.
Okay.
Official name, Stab Milk. Yeah.
Stab Milk and syrup.
Stab Milk and syrup. We got this.
What
Locked it in.
what I'm saying is, like, if you had done like 1 year we had somebody paint themselves green, it was kooky. It really wouldn't have been the same as like we have a full on, like we have me and Dylan Luther running around in a full costume. Like, it's a presence. It's a good thing, and that's just like a very shallow example. But what I really want to point out is when you have those eccentricities, you need to make sure that you do something like what Ben has done and what Cameo have done, and you have real substance underneath. You know, it's that same thing. Like, do you have just flash and then there's nothing, there's no base behind it? Having the leveled workshops, especially the straight concept workshops, is my favorite thing about the convention. Other than I just
Mine
really
too.
like you and Cameo, and you happen to hire a staff who was like, all my friends, I'm okay with it. But it's that concept workshop thing that just, it's the juice to me, man. It's just so good.
I agree. It's actually by far my favorite part. Still to this day.
Do you think that not to like segue out of that,
No,
but
do it.
do you think that that point that you're making about, give me more, give me something, give me a brand, an identity, is the biggest mistake that people make when they start wanting to create an event? Do you think there's a different one?
Yeah, I think that and intent.
Hmm.
I think it's a combination of those two factors, and they're mutually inclusive most of the time. So if somebody goes in with the intent of running just the same event and kind of a cookie cutter, as we refer to it, generally this isn't always the case, but my assumption is that their intent in running the event is not necessarily to create a valuable experience for the attendees.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's influence, sometimes it's to stand up in front of a whole bunch of people and say, this is a thing that I own. I would say, so those two things are probably the two biggest mistakes.
Right.
And usually they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So for you, what is the most valuable? And you may have even answered this already.
Oh, no, probably not, because there's so many things. A really common answer that you'll hear is that the most important part of a weekend is the combination of your head judge and your MC.
Cool.
I agree with that. I also agree that the music is the most important part of the weekend. I also agree that if you have the right intent and energy as event directors, that becomes infectious across the entire event. And some would say that the vibe and the energy, so that combined with the combination of staff that you hire, that I think we do a really good job of doing, and that sets the tone for the vibe and the energy around the event. And some would say that that's the most important part. So it really is all of those things. It's just you can't do one thing well and expect everybody to enjoy the whole weekend.
Yeah. Well, then let's play this game. Is there a complaint that stands out? Is there a common thing that people are like, I didn't like Brad Whelan?
That's the most common.
Oh,
you nailed it.
I don't like
nailed
Brad
it.
because Brad killed me at an event that I was at, and that was very mean of him.
I
I'm
thought
still
we
mad at you,
established.
Brad.
I thought we established that wasn't the
No, it
case
wasn't
because he
Brad.
never
But Brad,
triples.
But Brad messed up. Yeah, it couldn't have been him because he never triples.
Yeah.
You have to remember that.
I won't lie. I was drunk most of that weekend. Ask Brandy, and I just assumed you were a ghost the whole time in real life. Nothing to do with the story.
No. It was It was after I was slain by a nefarious murderer. I think that it was actually Brandy who killed me. I think that was the gag. It was Brandy. Damn it, Brandy.
Watching that happen, watching like the final little bits of the story happen right before awards was the funniest thing because it was good. Like I was still invested.
Oh my God, Deborah just couldn't hold it together. It was so
great.
funny.
Just
She
everybody's
was
like,
losing her mind.
In case anyone feels left out, they're talking about Rose City Swing. I also wasn't there.
We're going
I also
to
feel left out.
reenact.
So
It's fine.
we can
We're
have a moment.
We're gonna
together
have a
that we just
soliloquy.
stare at each other.
Yeah.
Bob,
While I
you-
can talk about this.
It was
Bubba
really
Curie.
funny, and you should be ashamed of yourself if you weren't there.
That's the tagline actually for Rose City this year.
You should be ashamed of yourself if you're not there. That's a great tagline. If I ever run an event, which I will never do, but if I ever run an event, the tagline is "You should be ashamed of yourself for not coming."
You heard it here
It's on
first.
wax.
Forrest Hanson running the Salty Bastard Convention next year. You'll be ashamed if you're not there. Yeah, and Babak mentioned something earlier. You're fine. We prompted you. Promote your convention. It's not a big deal. Austin writes, what do you guys think can be done to help grow the event teacher market? I'm noticing a trend of having some whale events. I like the term whale. I really do.
It's a good term.
It is.
Yeah.
Whale events buying all the big name instructors and either making the weekend non-competitive or making other events perpetually smaller. Jesus, Austin. Or even across the country and globe. There doesn't
You
seem
don't have
to
to
be
read the whole thing.
I'm gonna. Lots of
Great.
West Coast Street Treat.
War and Peace. Let's go.
Okay, it was the left side pass of times. It was the sugar push of times. Bowing back ceaselessly into the past. Great. There doesn't seem to be a lot of West Coast teacher training in any form at any events, and it feels like the pipeline for introducing new teachers to events, routines, etc., isn't set up well to grow the size of the event market and West Coast Swing in general. I don't think that's off topic at all. I think that's really well worded.
No, I think that's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a super fundamental question, which kind of helps us move away from Swingtacular per se to just kind of a broader take on events in general.
Yeah.
Do you think that there are better ways to integrate newer teachers? Do you think that we should be trying to integrate newer teachers? Because for like, I want to give your opinion first because it's better than mine. Oh, so to opine for 1 second, to me this is a community size issue. It's not actually like necessarily a teacher training issue. It's a community size issue because we have a small enough community that the 10 most significant teachers of West Coast Swing, in whatever order you want to put them in, can be at basically every event all the time.
Yeah.
Like there aren't enough major events on the calendar to have a situation where the distribution of instructors at any given event really skews too differently one direction or another, right?
Yeah.
And just tying into that, smaller events do tend to hire the newer instructors.
Yeah.
So it becomes a platforming issue, right? So as we continue to grow the size of the community, more people get involved. Those people can't be everywhere at once, right? So I think that would sort of naturally solve the problem itself. It's just natural growth. And then secondarily, to your point, Ben, a lot of it's about acquiring your bona fides. You know, like most people are not going to, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording actually, aren't going to like kind of walk in from insert, level here, walk in from Rising Star and teach a workshop at Swingtacular. There's just too much competition. Like that's the way it's going to go.
Yes.
But you might have a great opportunity to teach a workshop at a smaller event. So,
And that's how you build your name.
yeah.
That's how, I know it doesn't seem like it. And this might be getting slightly off topic, but here's closer to my
We
real
can
opinion.
talk about any topic you want.
Sounds
buddy.
great. A lot of people have no idea how long I've been teaching.
I do.
Like, no idea. I'm 29 years old, turned 30 in December. I started teaching when I was 15. And that was not at a swingtacular or something similar at all. That was locally.
Yeah.
That was actually up here in Novato, at Stars Ballroom way back in the day. Shout out Jason and Yvonne. I started teaching in Novato, and I started teaching weekly classes. And I barely knew what I was doing. I'm good at talking to people. I was pretty good at dancing, but I've slowly honed my craft. The amount of value that a Ben Morris, a Robert Royston, a Brandy Guild, a Jordan and Todd, a Kyle and Sarah, I can keep going. I love all of you people. The amount of value that they bring cannot be compared to somebody that's just getting into this, right? I know that seems obvious, but a lot of people don't realize how many years we've put into this. And that's why we are where we are. And there's a lot of people that say, well, I want to start teaching at events. Right. By the way, cool. Austin, I should clarify that this isn't directed at you specifically, right? This is a very general opinion. So it's not just scolding you. But how many years we've put into developing our marketability, and that brings in more people. Period. And when it comes to trying to run an event and at least break even, that is your goal. You need to get more people in the door.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't have the workshop space to give to a relative unknown. And honestly, if I don't know you're teaching yet, I'm not going to give you a workshop.
Yeah. Sure.
Period. I think there's plenty of events that you can get your legs under you, little by little. And that should be a process that is significantly longer than 2 years, or you just got into All-Stars.
Sure.
It should be, I mean, obviously experience isn't quantified within number of years, right? You can have a ridiculous amount of experience in 4 or 5 years. You could have no experience teaching within 15 years.
Sure.
Right? But you should get something close to your 1,000 hours.
Yeah, I think that to return to kind of the initial question itself, which I think was an awesome question and very well said, it's that like the problem is the pipeline, right? Like it's not so much about like what you're speaking to is you're speaking to kind of the Gordian knot of it, to put it a certain kind of way, where
Ben's like,
no, well, basically because it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And so exactly. So it's sort of what Austin's saying here, how events could like accelerate newer instructors, not that they're just trying to, and that's sort of what I'm speaking to right now, which is that it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where we say, okay, event, in order to make money, you have to hire Ben Morris and Kyle and Sarah and Ben and Cameo and so on and so on and so on. And if you hire insert names of new instructors X, Y, and Z, you will not make money, and therefore no one will go to your event and you will be sad and lonely. That becomes very self-fulfilling, right? So it just becomes that same group of people, and you never have new entrants to that pipeline. Now, I guess that the sort of obvious critique of that is that there have been new entrants to that pipeline. Yeah. But I do think that it's fair to point out that it hasn't been that many people. Like relatively few people have cracked that kind of core traveling instructor squad in the last 10 years.
And those people have cracked that because they've thrown down hard on the competition floor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which there's a huge separation there, and that might be a whole nother show.
And that's sort of what Austin's saying to you now, which is that like if it takes you 10 years to get to a point where you can like teach and get paid, then you're never going to get to that 10 years, right? Unless you're just like a total animal and it's the only thing you ever want to do, which, hey, more power to you.
Yeah.
But like, so there is clearly an issue there. Like, how can we get better at making it possible for people to enter West Coast Swing as a profession, which I think is the fundamental question that Austin's asking.
And what we're talking about in part, at the very least, is like the valuation of the arts. It's all concept based. It's all personal preference and that sort of thing, because you need to show your value in some fashion. It's very difficult when it's like, look how I twirl versus so and so. You know, it's the same thing as like as doing a convention. What sets you apart? Why am I going to go to Swingtacular over Jack and Jillarama? Just bad example, but you know what I mean. And saying that it takes 10 years to get into professional teaching, good in a lot of cases, because it takes a long time to be very, very good at something like this, where you have to know nuances and you have to be appropriately flashy but able to break it down. And we have that issue right now of, it's like Ben just gleaned on, there is a very big difference of being a good teacher and being a solid gold competitor, though in our market it is the same damn thing, or at least perceived as such. So I'll put this out there right now. I'm going to start a teacher training program. Sound like fun?
Okay.
Great.
I will say that is something that's developing more and more.
Yeah.
It is something that there's a void. When I was coming up, it took me as long as it did because there were certain people that had to take me under their wing out of the goodness of their heart and help me along this journey. I didn't have the money to pay for as many lessons as I would have had to take to do it in less than 5 years.
And that's another part of what Austin's saying here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That just
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it becomes this as both of you know better than me, because this is not my primary occupation, or the arts are not my primary occupation in terms of like how I make dollar bills. Thank goodness. So you guys feel this suffering. Yeah, hey, it is what it is, man. You chose this journey. You chose this life, buddy.
You'll see it in a second. I'm also flipping you off for it. It's okay.
Great, beautiful. There you go. But no, my point is this. All right, okay, whatever. My point is that like it becomes this economic like nightmare a little bit, where you have to pay out money to receive enough instruction to get to a point where you can make half of the money that you pay out for instruction. You know, it becomes like a very, very problematic cycle.
But you don't,
yeah, exactly. You just don't make money, I guess, is the answer.
No.
But
what I'm saying is you don't have to pay out X amount, you don't have to be taught how to teach.
Sure.
Like, that's not how I got into doing anything. And I got to travel the world teaching Lindy Hop and jazz and that sort of thing, because I went to the drop-ins.
There are ways to solve it.
Yeah, I went to the drop-ins. I got in good with a venue, so I didn't have to pay. And then I just really paid attention to how these people taught, what I agreed with.
Yeah.
And then I changed my...
Definitely an awesome way to do it.
It's one of the however many ways there are.
Yeah, but we are in the process of trying to build better pipelines.
That's just all
for
I'm
instructors.
Right.
I can tell you at least a few that are interested in up-and-coming instructors that me and Cameo have tried to pass on any experience that we have. And we are currently under multiple other people's kind of arms and wings, and they're helping to guide our journey, even at the point that we're at now. There's still more to be done, for sure. But I think Forrest nailed it. Until we have a big enough market that we can actually sustain the events that we already have, and then some, then that'll open up more opportunities for newer instructors, maybe under a few of the instructors that are already a little bit more experienced.
Then I would like to ask you this question, because I agree 100% with what the two of you are saying. How do you think we should do that? I have my own ideas, but how do we grow? How do we get more people into this? How do we make our market larger?
We have a few different ideas. So one, first and foremost, we're already, again, I'm hearing myself, sorry. First and foremost, the Westie Welcome Tour. I did say Westie Welcome Tour. As of right now, that's just the Westie Welcome program that we run at Swingtacular. And that's to help. Anytime you get somebody to a full weekend convention, they are, I don't know the exact percentage, I don't have data to back this up, but I'd assume they're at least 50 to 60% more likely to stick around and dance West Coast Swing for more than a year than if they just danced at a local studio. There's a reason we go to these events. It's an immersion. They want to keep going. They get addicted to it, and that's great. So we're trying to build from the local level to the event level. I know that we let 25 dancers in to Swingtacular for free last year, and I went to South Bay a few weeks later, and 9 of them had paid for a full weekend pass to go to South Bay. Right? And I asked the 3 of them that I had the opportunity to, would they have paid to go to South Bay had they had not gone to Swingtacular for free a few weeks before? They said no, right? So that's the way that we can pull from local base and try to build to the event going base. That's helpful.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that we're getting into now is trying to develop a little bit more in our local base. I'm teaming up with Nomad Hustle, which is the band that's going to be playing on Friday night. That includes my sister, Meshack Jackson, Anna Steiger, and a bunch of other really talented people. That's going to be ridiculous, by the way. Side note. But we're working on teaching a free beginner class before some of their shows.
Cool.
To get more people interested. The more West Coast Swing was thriving in the U.S. Right now it's thriving globally and a little stagnant in the U.S. and has been for about 5 to 10 years. When it was really thriving, and there's other issues that come into play that we can or cannot talk about either way, but it was really popular in the bar scene, within country bars. And that exposed a ton of people to West Coast Swing, and then our community was thriving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We may have stolen people from country, which may or may not had to do with their decline a little bit.
And that's part of the problem, is that one of the primary feeder systems we had is now kind of
depleted.
I think it's fair to say depleted. Yeah.
The whale we were
So-
parasite. We were the parasite of.
So, I mean, the basic gist, it comes down to finding more ways to expose more people.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If we get people exposed, it's not like we have a hard product to sell. We are involved in a community that is incredible.
Yeah.
The art is incredible. The people are incredible. There's always been way more positive than negative. The negative exists, but the positive far outweighs the negative. We have something that's easy to sell. We just have to actually try to sell. We have to show more people, and that's going to be our goal here in the Bay Area.
Cool.
To give an addendum to all of that, Jody made a mention about kind of the local scene, and Austin's also kind of made some allusions to that. I do think that growing local communities is one of the ways that this problem gets solved.
Yeah.
There are 2 examples in the San Francisco Bay Area with Eric Jacobson at Mission City Swing and Michelle Crozier in the South Bay at Do Your Own Swing, who really over the last 2 to 3 years, I would say, have grown almost something from nothing. Not quite from nothing, but from pretty darn small, particularly in the South Bay, I would say. And now these are communities of 50 to 100 people who wouldn't be dancing, who now are dancing. And 50 to 100 people is a really big chunk of the competitive community almost in any county in the world, because there just aren't that many people doing West Coast Swing, which is kind of like a truth pill that we all need to just kind of accept, that if you get 50 more competitive dancers, 100 more competitive dancers into a community, that's like a huge boost in growth.
Yep.
So that's all we have to do. And it's really easy to say that's all we have to do because there's a lot of complexity associated with doing that. But all it takes is those groups of 50, and to have one of those spring up in a variety of different locations around the country, and all of a sudden you have something happening. And that's kind of what I think could create like a really organic sense of growth that could potentially solve a lot of these bigger problems that we're speaking to, including the question of how do you make money from this dance, which we've spoken to in a variety of different ways on the show. Austin's questions were largely oriented towards that.
Yeah.
And your responses about the costs of running an event, the reality of having a $70,000 budget and still not really being clear that you're going to make a cent from it.
Yeah.
You know, like that's some real stuff right there. So.
Yeah. I will just quick shout out. I think the bring your own beginner idea is extremely valuable as well.
Yeah.
I know they've been doing it at Rose City Swing Dances up in Portland and a few other places. I'm not sure where it started first. Either way, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's just an incentive program that basically if you bring a beginner that's never been before, you get in for free that night. It's the same idea with the Westie Welcome Tour. Eventually, we want it to be an incentive program that the person that brings the most people to multiple events accumulatively, that person gets a free pass to one of those events, 2 of those events, 3 events, all of those events, whatever it ends up being. And I find that that's a model that's eventually going to actually create exponential growth.
Yeah. I mean, anytime that you can convince
Absolutely.
somebody that what you do is cool, the unquantifiable thing, then they'll stick by it. If you can empower a person to actually believe in what the hell you're doing, that's what we're talking about here. And unfortunately, we are a little over time, and we have to kind of wrap it up. So, Ben, is there anything that you'd like to kind of leave everybody with?
Always appreciate your event directors. Meanwhile, don't
Send them lots of fan mail.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
Cover cameos.
don't put them up on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Don't put them up on a pedestal. They don't deserve your respect just because they run an event, right? That said, be grateful for the effort that they are putting in. If that is something you're noticing, appreciate it. That is something that we appreciate. Always go in with an open mind. Try to give the benefit of the doubt when you can. I promise you, we're not trying to run late. I promise you, we weren't trying to make you miss your final because it happened quicker than you would have expected, and we were running 15 minutes late, and then we caught up, and you had to run to the bathroom. You get the idea, right? Give the benefit of the doubt. Go in with an open mind. And also talk to your event directors about what you want. We're hopefully, again, if we're going in with the right intent, our goal is to make you happy. Let us know what would make you happy.
Yeah.
I
have 3 favorite episodes of this show so far, and that was the first time Forrest was on, the time that Chris DeMont was on, and today. So, Ben, today was awesome. Really, man. Thank you so much.
Buddy.
Like this.
So glad to be here.
It's anytime that I get to selfishly learn something, which is a lot because Forrest is, my host, but still, I learned so much about your convention, about just kind of where everything's at in the community these days. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. Those of you that asked questions that we didn't get to, we're terribly sorry. The show is only an hour long. If you have things that you want addressed, leave them in. Always leave them in the comments. We have, what did I call it? The West Coast Live AV Club, which is a great place to post things, that, videos and music that inspires you. Yeah, that's right.
That's adorable.
I thought so.
I love it.
We'll probably make like I need a good title for like topics you want covered. I couldn't think of one. Maybe student council or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we could just throw a thread on the group for starters and kind of field some additional questions. We've done that a couple of times.
Yeah.
Just as a quick note, we read every comment.
Yeah.
For better or worse, we read every one.
Yeah.
And so if you have something that you want to express, if you have something that you want us to deal with, post a comment, and I promise that we will read it. We may or may not cover it, but we will definitely read it.
Yeah. We'll do our very best to bring you a show that you guys want to see. And so far, this has been awesome. And I look forward to it again. Ben, I'm going to say this now. I want you back on the show. That's pretty easy. And Cameo.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you, buddy. And Cameo, I know you're still in the chat. A huge shout out to Cameo and Swingtacular. And if you do something and you love it and you do your very best to make other people feel the same joy that you feel, you're a wonderful human being. And Ben and Cameo are certainly that. So that's going to be it from us today. My name is Andrew. This is Forrest Hanson and Ben McHenry. Go and have the best day you've ever had, guys, and we'll see you again on West Coast Live.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Love you all.